So event number 10 of season 4 is in the books, the Apex Group Bermuda Sail Grand Prix. Todd Harris, Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel. Emily, start with you. What was your biggest takeaway from your home waters of Bermuda?
I just thought it was brilliant racing all round. You know, with the slightly shifty conditions, it meant for some really good racing, so many lead changes. Like often when it's shorter courses, we've got a lot more interaction between the boats, but a bigger course here, more room to see how these shifts played out, and it just made for a really exciting watch.
Stevie, they always say the cream rises to the top, and I think we got a pretty good clarification this weekend of the top 3 teams. Obviously, the Australians, the Kiwis, but Spain really showed some class.
Yeah, Spain have, they've definitely got a super strength when they're on the big foil setup, the big light air boards and the big rudders. They seem to sail very well in that, and class act, aren't they, out on the water? I think it also showed how you perhaps need a little bit of luck. Moments before that, at the end of that sort of 5th fleet race of the day, they weren't in the final. They'd made a mistake. They'd opened the door for the French. Could have had penalty points. Could have been such a different end to things. So it shows how tight it is. Absolutely great to see Australia back in the mix and showed their class to come back after a tough event in Christchurch. But yeah, Spain have laid down some serious credentials because that was perfect, no excuse, open course, F50 racing, and they beat the best in the business, and they beat them well.
And what I really appreciate about the Spanish team as well is their openness. On that interview with them, they were willing to talk to us, tell us what they were thinking, which often with a lot of these teams, they're quite guarded about what they're doing. They, don't necessarily want the opposition to find out what they're doing, but it also makes you accountable. Like the Spanish did, they said, oh, we want to be at that end of the line. If they'd gone and started at the windward end of the line, we would have been there like, you didn't manage what you were doing. So it really, holds you to it, and I respect that.
Stevie, at the start of season 4, if I'd have told you at this point after 10 events it would be New Zealand, Australia, and Spain, would you have been shocked?
Well, for 2 of them, absolutely not. No, I probably am a little bit shocked by the Spanish, to be perfectly honest. I don't mean that as any disrespect for them, but they probably struggled towards the end.
It's a young team.
Well, and they struggled toward the end of season 3, didn't they? There was a lot of talk of crew changes. They changed over the driver. Diego came in. He's got a real pedigree from his 49er sailing at Olympic level, and I think that really suits. It's a round peg in a round hole. We're kind of seeing in some of the other boats coming in. If you think of Olympics sort of situation, this is like a 200-meter race that we're coming in to do. Diego's the 200-meter runner, so he's been brought in to do that. A lot of the other teams are bringing in, 10,000-meter runners, and they've got to learn a new sport. So they might be gold medalists, they might be the best in the business, but not at this short sprint-type racing. And I think the Spanish made a wise move with Diego. Great choice to come in. Good team. And I'm stunned really to see how far ahead of, France, Denmark, and, and the Canadians they now find themselves. So hats off, though. Totally deserved.
Emily, we keep with the Atlantic Ocean theme. Coming up next, we go to Halifax, Canada. Then it's on to New York City before going to the Pacific in San Francisco. Was this an opportunity missed for teams like Canada and Rockwell, Denmark?
I'd say it's an opportunity missed all round. It's one of those venues that really rewards kind of heads out of the boat and thinking in advance. And I did expect the Danish to do better here. Yeah. Really surprised with France's performance in particular. What they were one of kind of the leaders in kind of the betting room of who we thought was going to do. I think they were Stevie's bet, which I do feel bad for them. I thought they'd come out better. And if you looked at the original forecast for this weekend, we did think it was going to be breezier across the board. Weren't necessarily expecting light air boards, which are the Spanish's super strength. And the French normally do struggle with those boards.
Yeah, how much is it pressure? Today we saw a little bit of desperation from Contan, trying to force things at the start, trying to make things happen, and we're getting to that stage of the season. I think the great thing for Canadian fans as we head towards Halifax is how well the Canadians are sailing. But for the Canadians themselves, that's going to really hurt. That's the first time I've really seen an interview with Phil where he's looked proper dejected and not really had a cheeky comment to come back with. I always love that about Phil, the positivity and all the rest of it. But I think he deep down knows they did not do a great job in that last race. They so should have been in the final. They were probably the boat of the weekend.
Yeah.
But it's not what the results show, and it's the results that matter.
Yeah, on day number 1, Canada goes second, and then a 6. So solid performances, but it was day 2 that kind of did them in. Second to start off on race 4, but it's the 9th on race number 5 that just was the anchor that dropped them.
Yeah, and the last race, pressure on. I think they needed, if they'd got a 5th, they were guaranteed. But in fact, they only needed to finish 7th, which is where they were coming. And they lost, they were talking to their coach on the downwind. Fair enough. I think that's great, trying to get the information in. But maybe then overcomplicated. They'll have to go back and they'll have to look at it. But I think for the Canadians, pretty depressing. And for Rockwool, Denmark, we saw the Viking roar a little bit on Saturday, but Nikolai, he's going to be upset. So there's a lot of teams have got to go away and lick their wounds. I don't think it's over and done with for the top 3. I still think Australia and New Zealand, barring complete disasters, are gone. But for pretty much all the other teams other than Spain, there's a lot of soul-searching required.
Speaking of licking your wounds, how about the Americans? They miss out on the whole weekend because they basically wrecked their wing in practice. They've got to bounce back in a big-time way. You've got Canada, neighbors to the north, and then you've got your home event in New York City. They've got to come up big.
Yeah, it's fingers crossed that the Americans can even get their wing ready in time. Halifax isn't that far away. The pressure is really going to be on the tech team and the shore team to get that wing repaired and get the team out racing. Because if not, it's pretty much no-go for the final.
Yeah, I think that's just to clarify on Emily's point. They actually broke the front element. It's called the main element. It's kind of like in a normal sailing boat, the mast. So it's very structural, and they hit the water so hard and so fast that it actually snapped that. So it's actually a big repair for the tech team to get done. And yeah, I think the USA need to reframe how they're visiting their SailGP campaign. They've come in talking of finals. I think that's a bit naive. I think they need to be working on the basics, working on their manoeuvres, chipping away and slowly getting better, because yes, they're some of the leading sailors in their side of our sport, but they've come into a pool of all the best sailors from all the best pools. This is the best of the best. You don't just rock up and win. You work up and you earn your stripes. They're good enough to, but they're not going to do it in a day.
And on that note, I think it really comes down to how you use your time in between events. And I don't want to, name and shame, point fingers, all that. But if you look at the team, they haven't necessarily done the work between events that set them up well. As a new team with sailors that haven't done wing trim before, haven't done flight control before, I would expect them to be in the simulator. I would expect the wing trimmer to be learning that button panel. And, he did own up to the mistake. He pressed the wrong button, and I'm gutted for them that happened. Like, it's an awful mistake to make, and especially having that pressure on your shoulders. But as the wing trimmer, you should know your button panel. You should be able to do it in your sleep, and they're not there yet.
Bottom line, though, everyone's okay. That's the most important thing.
Okay,
it was a
and they're going to be fired up going back to North America now, aren't they? So I expect a big bounce back. They said, this won't define them. It's how they bounce back from it that will define them. And what better than being very near home turf and then home turf. So expect big things from the US team going forward. But as I say, I think all the teams have got a lot of work to do. 3
events before we wrap up season 4. Let's get a quick prediction, Emily, from you as we go to Halifax, Canada. What can we expect, and who do you think will fare well?
I think we're going to have a really good battle between the Canadians and Spanish again. So the Canadians, home water. The Spanish, though, I know those guys have done some sailing in Halifax before. They've gone there with the 49ers. So I think this battle could continue further.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm going to use. I support Liverpool as a football team, soccer team in the UK, and they've got. Well, this is going to make a lot of sense in a minute. They've gone a goal behind too many times this season, and they keep digging it out. Now New Zealand have started badly the last two events, and they've just scraped a final. I think New Zealand need a bit of a reframe on their starting, or they could miss out on the final. Not going to be disastrous for their season, but a big thing for them to work on. Australia have clearly got issues with their boat. So yeah, I think you're quite right. I think Spain and Canada are going to be so fired up. Who else? Denmark. It's got to be. It's going to suit Denmark a little bit. Those kind of conditions, potentially a bit Scandinavian up there, in the northern part. I think it's potential that it could suit them.
All right, well, that will conclude our coverage of Event 10. It is the Apex Group Bermuda Sail Grand Prix. Congratulations once again, Diego Botin, the driver, and Spain as they take top honors. So on behalf of Stevie Morrison and Bermuda's finest export, Emily Nagel, I'm Todd Harris. We will see you in Halifax, Canada, June 1st and 2nd.